Okay. I might be live. You guys have to tell me in the chat. Can you see me? Am I there? um, hey, I'm here now. Okay, it looks like somebody sees me. Okay. All right, is it working? I think people. Okay, you see me. Okay, cool. I don't think I've ever done a live stream on YouTube before, so this is definitely different. I did a live stream years ago on TikTok, I think, but then I haven't really done it since. So, yeah. Got 100,000 though. I don't really know what to say for a live stream, since this isn't really a thing I do regularly. So, I don't know. Thank you guys for coming along on this journey. I mean, I'm not ending yet, so we're just going along. Thanks, guys. There's a lot of really nice messages on here. Let's see. I saw a question. Will I make a long form video? I'm hoping to. So I've recorded a bunch of long form videos, but I'm not very good at the editing part. I need to get better at doing that part. And so I need to post those. So there's some different ones that I went to Hawaii, so I have those videos. And then I went to Boston recently, and so I have that one. Those ones that are going to be coming out. So I do have some different videos that will be coming out at some point, hopefully soon. Let's see. So I'm not a historian. I didn't go to college in history. I went to college in pre-med, actually. So I was going to be a doctor and then realized I didn't want to be a med. Thank you, guys. My favorite Marvel movie? That's a good question. I don't know. The original Iron Man, I think it's such a classic. So I'd probably say the original Iron Man. Although I really did like the first Ant-Man as well as the first Guardians of the Galaxy. I think those are also really good. But it looks like, I mean, it's not even technically time yet. I just hopped on a couple minutes early, I guess. But having some more people come in here. Thank you all so much for coming along on this ride. And thank you for subscribing, because that's really cool. Bushes, and I mean, there's the George Bush and the George H.W. Bush, if that's the bushes that you're referring to. I mean, if it's landscaping, they changed the landscaping quite a bit, I would imagine. But I don't know. Social media is my full-time job, actually. I have been doing it full-time for, I don't know how long it's been. Probably like 2.5 years. Just because I really didn't like my job and I had a lot of savings. So I quit the job that I had, and then I was making like enough to like sort of cover my bills, but it wasn't really much more than that for a little bit, until it's picked up a little bit more. And I'm by no means rolling in the dough, but I'm doing okay. Well enough that I don't have to have a different job, thankfully. Why is the Great Lakes considered landlocked? I would say because it's a river, so it's not directly connected. So like the Like the Red Sea is directly connected to the ocean, and the Mediterranean Sea is, it's a direct connection. So if there's a river in between the sea or the lake and the ocean, then it's no longer a sea, and it's just a lake, even if it's salty. Um, see. Yeah, I mean, making history videos, I mean, honestly, this has been my dream for a really long time. Ever since I, since YouTube was a thing that you could do, right? So YouTube came out in 2006. I was in 6th grade. And me and my friends, we immediately loved it. And we would be watching YouTube. No, back then, it was like insanity. People were posting like all kinds of how to make fireworks videos and crazy stuff like that. Whereas nowadays they don't really allow that kind of thing. But then once, I don't know, 2010, 2011, people were actually making money and like making a full-time job on it. I wanted to do it, but I kept talking. I was like, oh, it'd be really cool to make history videos, because my whole life I just will drop these random fun facts like I do making these videos. And I'd be talking to my friends, and they'd eventually be like, okay, we get it, World War II, right? Whereas now I get to do this as my full-time job, and I just get to talk about it. Whereas like I didn't do history as my degree in college because I didn't want to be a history teacher at like high school, or I don't want to get a PhD and be a professor, because I mean, it's so competitive to do all that. Meanwhile, with YouTube, obviously it's a lot harder to make a full-time job, but somehow I'm managing. So let's see. I don't know if I don't know what my favorite Vietnam War movie is. I'd have to think about that. Oh, thanks. Thanks for the 100,000. It is a crazy number on YouTube, especially because it's. I mean, that takes a lot. I was really. I mean, it's been a little bit less than 3 years, and so being able to get to 100,000 in that time period, I think, is insane. Because for a lot of people, it takes way longer than that, or maybe they never get there, and I mean, some people obviously get there immediately or super fast or something, but yeah. I don't know. I mean, college. The problem with college is it's so expensive. So to go back and get a degree in history, I'm sure there's a lot of things that I would gain from it, especially like the credentialing side, to be a historian. But if it was free, I would probably consider doing college. But I don't know, the tens of thousands of dollars that it would cost to pay to go to college again. I would rather just use that money for lots of history books. But yeah, I don't know. I have watched MASH. MASH is fun. I haven't watched it like start to finish. That is something that I think would be a fun thing to do. But there's a lot of seasons of that. Isn't there 10 seasons of MASH or something? But yeah, I've seen the first little bit of MASH for sure. I've seen a lot of scattered episodes throughout, and I've seen the last episode, which I think is the most watched TV show ever, was the MASH finale, something like that. 11 seasons. See, yeah, that's a lot of seasons. I mean, that is like 6 times the length of the war. Although technically the war never ended, but you know what I mean. So currently I'm streaming off my iPhone, and I edit all of my from this too. All of my old long form videos I was doing on an iPad. I was editing everything just in iMovie on an iPad. And then recently I've gotten a Mac Mini, which like the new Mac Mini, which is like $500, and it works super well. And so I've done my most recent couple videos have been on that, and I need to do more. All the videos I need to be editing. favorite ancient civilization, Mesopotamia. I would say my favorite civilization is probably, or ancient civilization is probably the Romans. I know the most about them. Egyptian, like Egypt is cool, but I've just never gotten super into it. Ancient Greece is pretty interesting. Obviously, the beginnings of democracy and all that, but I have not. I don't know if I would say it's my favorite, but it's definitely really interesting. There's some good books that I've read fairly recently about both Greece and Rome, which are both pretty good. For geopolitics, I stay out of any current politics. I'm talking about old stuff. So, I talk about 9/11 occasionally, and I'll do Iraq War, Afghanistan, stuff like that every now and again. And every now and again I'll talk about something that's pertaining to the current time period, right? Where I'm talking about landmines in Ukraine or something like that. But I'm not a military expert, so sometimes people are like, make a video about whatever, and I'm like, go to Preston Stewart for that. That's not me. But yeah, long form videos, I like making long form videos, but it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of work to edit them, and I'm not very good at editing them, and I'm not very good at getting myself to want to edit them. So it's a bit of a process. Let me see. Olmecs. I mean, I think like all the American civilizations, I think those are pretty interesting. I know like a decent amount about them, but my main history stuff tends to be 1760 and above, the American time period. Obviously, I also like some castles and some medieval stuff and some ancient history as well, where I'll dabble in that a bit more. But Knights Templar, I mean, I don't know if I have a ton of strong feelings about them either way. I think that they were interesting. And I think the idea of wanting to help pilgrims go to Jerusalem back in medieval times was interesting. But there's all kinds of other stuff about them too that I don't know as much about. I like some like prehistoric animals and stuff like that. I think it's cool, but I've just never done a ton with it. You know, I like fossils. Fossils are fun. I'd like to do more fossils on shorts and stuff. I watch a lot of videos of people going fossil hunting, and that's pretty fun. But I don't know like a ton about all of that, really, like the really old stuff. Yeah, I would really like to do a tour of DC and go to Washington, D.C. I think that'd be super fun. I got to do that at some point, but it's hard because if you look at the prices for hotels in DC, oof, those are expensive. Whereas, like recently, I got to go to Boston, but that was TikTok paid for all of it, which was crazy because there was a conference, and so they flew me out. I was not expecting it. I thought maybe it was a scam at first, but it turned out it wasn't. And then, they flew me out to Boston. I got to make videos there, and then there was a conference, and it was only like 2 days that I was there. But DC is very expensive, so I'd really like to go. And at some point, I'm just gonna have to suck it up and pay for it. But and there's so much history in Washington D.C. too, and all the museums. Hiring an editor, I would like to. I have some of my other friends who are content creators as well, that they go, hey dude, you need to hire an editor. And so I probably will at some point, but they're expensive, and long form videos, they just don't get enough views to make the money necessary to pay for them. So I'd be losing money with every upload. So at some point I need to get there, but I want to. I missed some. Let me see. Yeah, the woolly mammoths existed at the same time as pharaohs, which is crazy. I mean, it was like one island in in Siberia or something that were still around. Um, yeah, I got 100K is crazy. I cannot believe, honestly, that I've got that far. Thank you. Um, oh, you watched my Sutter's Fort video? You were one of the few. I need to just do more of them. Consistency is the key, right? Like, my main thing is I've been able to do 5 videos a day, almost every single day, for 3 years, more than 3 years now. Because I started doing TikTok first because it seemed less scary than YouTube. And so that's how I've been able to get so far with shorts, is because I just keep doing them. Whereas with long form videos, I was consistent for a little bit and then I dropped off. And then I've been doing it every now and again, but I haven't been very good at it. Counterfactuals, I don't know. A lot of my videos are, well, you thought this thing, but it was actually this thing, or whatever it is. But thanks. I'm not a teacher in real life. Honestly, it was something I thought about, but honestly, I just don't. The idea of being at a school all day. I didn't like high school very much when I was in high school, and so I just didn't really want to do it. And so I was going to be a doctor, and then I realized I didn't want to be a doctor, and I worked in finance for a little bit, but then I hated that too. So eventually I just started making videos, and then it started paying well enough that I could quit my job, and it was great. Yeah, have fun at work. A lot of my information, so it's part of it is just years and years and years of me looking up stuff, of reading, of doing things like that. And so then as I'm watching a YouTube video, or I'm watching TV, or I'm living my life, I'll think of something from World War II and I'll go, ooh, that's really interesting. I want to talk about that. But I read a lot. There's an app called Libby, which you can connect your library card to, and it does audiobooks as well as ebooks, and then I also read physical books a lot too. But I go through this year. I think I'm on track to do around 180 books read this year. Last year was 180 something. The year before that was 160 or 150 something. I don't know. It's been several years of reading more than 150 books a year. But then also, documentaries, podcasts, all kinds of other stuff or I'll be reading articles or doing different stuff like that. Prince of Egypt, I remember really liking that when I was a kid, but I have not seen Prince of Egypt from DreamWorks in such a long time that I don't really remember it. What was my least favorite type of video to make? I don't know. There's a lot of times I come up with an idea, but I just can't figure out how to make it interesting enough for a video. And so those are probably my least favorite because I don't end up making them. For presidents, it really depends. I mean, with a lot of presidents, I read their autobiographies. There's some really good ones. David McCullough has some good books. I'm bad at remembering the names of authors, but there's some really good ones. Like the guy who did Hamilton and Adams and stuff. He had a good autobiography. Or biography, and then some of them write autobiographies, but those are pretty dry normally, and a lot of them are really self-aggrandizing, which can be a bit much. So almost every library, like your local library, will have Libby. Like you just go to your local library, you get a library card, and then almost all of them across the country, and even in other countries, a lot of people, I've seen videos of people talking about Libby in like London and stuff like that. So I would say go to I don't know, libraries are cool, just like that Arthur song from that kid show. Having fun isn't hard when you got a library card. No, but yeah, and so with the Libby app, it just Depends on like where you live, but I think most libraries have them and it's free. Um, I did like the Grant biography. I haven't read his autobiography. I keep meaning to, but it's long, and I don't know. I have to get around to it. um, I mean, library cards are great. Um, and so basically, with the Libby app, you just download it and then you put in your library card information, and then it should just work. But you might need to go to your library and be like, hey, do you have this? Or maybe their website would show if they need it. And some libraries, the library card expires, other ones don't. Some of them last 10 years or 20 years, and some of them last a year or something, or 2 years before you have to update it. My favorite president before the 21st century. Well, I mean, it has to be like, now if you're saying 20th century, because there's different like time periods of presidents, right? So there's like the founding era where you have George Washington and Adams, right? Where you have these really interesting figures, really cool founding fathers, but then you start to move in and then you get like Abraham Lincoln, right? Or, and then you have like post-Civil War era, and then you have like the pre-FDR era, even like Wilson, because he's really like the first like really big government guy. I would say it's hard to say exactly who my favorites are. I think Calvin Coolidge is a really interesting guy. The reason why we say like, oh, that's cool, is because of Calvin Coolidge. Was his campaign was be cool like Coolidge, or cool like Calvin, something like that. And so like that's why we use the word cool. I also think he was a very like chill president, and so he wasn't, unlike a lot of the other ones where they're being really aggressive or trying to get in front of the camera all the time or whatever. He was just like, I'm just gonna get my job done and not do a bunch of crazy stuff. And so to me, it's easier to say who my least favorite presidents are than favorites. But hey, guys, more people are joining. So, yeah, I get the silver play button. I've seen some different things. I've seen videos in the past of people talking about getting the silver play button, and some people, it takes a long time to get it, and sometimes it's fast. So I don't really know. I guess they contact me through like the YouTube app, and then they say, hey, claim the silver play button, and then they send it to me. So yeah, I think that'd be cool. Okay, let me see. Yeah, so thank you, DHAM. My least favorite president probably is Woodrow Wilson. I've done quite a bit of videos about him. There's just like any angle that you want to not like him from, you can kind of dislike him from it. Thank you, Majestic Cat. So what countries have I visited before? So I've been to Mexico. That's the only other country I've been to. I want to get out to some other countries. I got my passport updated because it expired. And then, but I haven't pulled the trigger on going to a next country. So I'm hoping this next year I'll be heading somewhere else and making videos about other places, because I did Pearl Harbor and some other places in Hawaii. And I have videos that I just need to edit, and I'm in the process of editing them. But it takes a lot to do like vlogs and stuff. It's much harder than doing a face-to-face video. Okay, we should 100% make a video. Yeah, at the very least, I'm gonna do a short thing like, yeah, here's the silver play button, woo, right? And then I'll probably have it like in the background when I start doing long form videos again. Because I do want to start doing like the sit down long form videos, because my last couple have been just like around where I went to Sutter's Fort and I went to the Alamo, and then I have the next handful of them are going to be Pearl Harbor and some different areas in Hawaii, and then in Boston. And so but I want to keep doing more of like the sit down ones. If you've seen any of my older long form videos. Okay, well, have fun at work, Full Metal Chad. And I believe this live stream will be up later, so if you feel like watching the rest of it, you can. Yeah, this is a YouTube shirt. I like randomly YouTube will like send me stuff, and that's kind of one of the fun things about being in the YouTube program, where they'll just be like, "Hey, do you want a Christmas sweater?" So I have like an ugly Christmas sweater from YouTube. Then like I have this shirt. Sometimes they'll it'll be like a first come first serve, and if I don't see the email in time, I won't be able to get stuff. But they also give me free YouTube Premium for 6 months, and it was so good I had to keep paying for it after it ran out because it's just great. See ya, Dinosaur Legend. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think being on YouTube, I think is really great. Obviously, I get some money for it, but also, there's just like other stuff, and now like the play button. I mean, that's the equivalent of a like a record or whatever for a musician for having 100,000 subscribers. It's so many subscribers. That's bigger than my hometown. So they've given me just like a couple. YouTube's given me just a few things. A lot of the other stuff where I didn't get it fast enough, or like they gave me movie tickets one time, but it was for a movie theater chain that wasn't near where I lived. So I didn't actually end up using them. And then there was like, at one point they were doing like free Taco Bell thing, but it was like specific tacos, a specific type. I forget which one it was. They're like, here's a free super duper taco or whatever. And then I didn't end up going because there just wasn't one near me. The Pentagon Pizza Tracker. I think it'd be really funny. Something that I think would be hilarious if I ever got big enough that I was in Washington, D.C. and I had a big enough subscriber count that we do a big subscriber get together and we order pizzas from the pizza place that they do the tracker for the Pentagon. So we get like, I don't know, 100 pizzas or something like that. And we get, hundreds of people. And the big joke is it's going to mess with the pizza tracker. And then I just think that'd be funny. Let's see. I don't know. There's a lot of, I've lived in a bunch of different states. California and Texas and Idaho and Utah is where I've lived. And I liked all of them for different reasons. There was also things I disliked about them. But then I've also been to a lot of states out west, almost all of them. But then I haven't been to that many in the east. So there's different cool things about different ones. Thank you. Your name scrolled away, so I can't see it, but you said some nice things. Hopefully my channel will someday be properly rated and then someday overrated. Thanks. How do I come up with video topics? I am constantly looking for ideas, and something for me is I constantly am just thinking about random things. Like I'll just be like today I made a video about blockhouses in the colonial era, and I was just thinking about forts like I do. And so I was just like, oh, like I should do a video about blockhouses. That'd be fun. And so it really just is all over the place. And it depends because like I read a lot of books and I go back and forth where I'll read nonfiction, I'll do fiction, I'll do a lot of different stuff. Like I did like Brandon Sanderson books, if you read any of those. I've been working my way through Wheel of Time recently. And so sometimes something in that, even though they're not history, it's just fantasy, something in that will spark a video topic where I go, oh, I should talk about swords. Thank you all so much. Any of you who have subscribed, any of you who are watching, I just really appreciate it. My favorite historical era has got to just be the American era, I suppose, because I do a lot of World War II, World War I, Cold War stuff, um, Revolutionary War. I feel like that's like the biggest part that I think about the most and I know the most about. But then also, like medieval times is super fun. Um, so what state? I'm currently living in Utah. Not to um, dox myself or something. Um, thanks. Thank you. Let's see. I'd really like to. All right. Well, the United States is amazing to visit. I really want to go to Europe, and I think it'd be fun to do a backpacking, like going to a bunch of different things, but also just doing like smaller ones. Um, and um, so if you're in Europe, you should come to the United States. I know, like on the internet, they'll talk bad about the United States and be like, "Oh, it's so scary," but just like everywhere where there's like maybe there's an area of Paris or something that maybe you don't want to go to, but then the rest of it is fine. That's the same way everywhere, So the United States is just like that, where I mean, if the cheapest places are going to be California or Florida or DC or New York, you just have to go to one of them. I've never been to Florida or DC or New York. I definitely want to go to all of them. I think Florida sounds fun with beaches and everything. I think DC and New York have a lot of cool history. California, you'll hear a lot of crazy stuff about California, and there's definitely parts of LA or whatever, or San Francisco that are a little weird, but the rest of it is so great. Um, so, um, your videos are well. Thank you for subscribing and people being weird in the comments. You should be nice instead. Stop being weird. So the Byzantine Empire is really interesting because like they considered themselves to be just continuation of Rome, and now in our modern day we're just like the Byzantine Empire is not the same thing. It's totally different. But I don't know. It's very interesting, and I've seen some videos. There's Told in Stone and Told in Stone footnotes where it's I forget what his name is, but he does a lot of these cool, or he goes to these ancient sites, and he is a doctor of ancient history or something, and so he just goes through these different cool sites like in Turkey and Greece and Rome and North Africa and stuff of all these different Roman sites, and they're really cool. And then there's a few other people that I've seen where they've done some really cool ones in Turkey that I think that'd be cool to go to the different Byzantine sites. Yeah, I mean the one hard thing with going to the West Coast if you're in Europe, or for me going to Europe from closer to the West Coast, it's a long flight. It is, and so that can definitely be a bit of a hard pill to swallow. I think that you just gotta stay long enough to make it worth it, right? Where it's like going to Hawaii where it's 6 hours, you got to be there at least a week, otherwise it just doesn't feel worth it. And so to go to the US, now the nice thing, now it's not quite as small as Europe in terms of like you can get on a flight from Paris to Berlin and it's only an hour or something, so you can hop around pretty easily. I think that the United States still, like, you could go to a couple different cities if you were going to come to the U.S. I gotta go to New York and I gotta try the pizza, and then I can do a video about that. I do think it'd be fun to talk about that because I have talked about like kind of the history of different foods before, so I could do that. Yeah, I've watched a lot of his channel. He's one of the few people. Like, what's funny is there's not that many people who do history videos, and so I've been able to kind of be friends with a lot of them, but I haven't met him yet, or like did a video chat. Whereas like some of the other ones, like World War Wisdom, he's a really cool guy, or History Underground, where it's like I know them a little bit better, or at least we've like texted back and forth or something. I think internet or alternate history is an interesting topic because it's like, well, what could have happened? And so you can kind of like theorize, and you can either be like extreme with your alternate history, or you can try and like do something that's a little bit like closer to what you think the reality would be. And so I think that's definitely an interesting option, of figuring that out. But that's not like exactly what I've done. I do occasionally do an alternate history video, but not too much. Turkey is nice. That's cool. I would like to go to Turkey. It scares me a little bit, right? Anywhere where, I guess some of the ISIS stuff is kind of cooled down. I have had friends that, they were in Turkey, and I had a friend that she was at the Istanbul airport the day before there was an attack there. And it went off on like the place where she was waiting before her flight. And so I was like, that's scary. But I feel like that's kind of cooled down quite a bit. So that's good. And thank you all so much. If I haven't said your comment or said thank you directly to you, thank you all so much for being so nice and for subscribing. 100,000 people is a lot of people. Longest flight, 4 hours was one of them. I don't see it anymore. Yeah, my longest flight I think was 9. I went from Atlanta to Mexico City. I think was 9 hours. An 11-hour flight would be so long. You have Byzantine ruins in your city. That's really cool. That's something that, like, when I used to live in Mexico City, and there's just ruins everywhere. And it's crazy, just down the street. And it's like a lot of times they're not even like protected, or like nobody's paying attention to them, nobody's visiting them, anything like that. But my favorite history topic, I mean, is it too basic to be like World War II? I talk about World War II a lot. I read a lot of World War II books. I do a lot of videos on World War II. So, I mean, I guess it's got to be World War II. Yeah, well, and what's not easy with a lot of flights is like, unless you're willing to spend an arm and a leg, you get some terrible seats. And I'm 6'3", so like squishing into one of those seats and not having any leg room and stuff, oof, that gets rough. I did a 6-hour flight to Boston. Oh, thank you for $1. Thanks, John. I appreciate that. Apparently, there is no tax on donations, I guess. I just saw an article about that today. Is the no tax on tips, I guess, applies to content creators. So that's kind of fun. What would I do with more lives? Oh, you should do more lives. I think that they're fun. I haven't really done many of them, and so I don't really know too much about it. If you guys think I should, then maybe I would do more of them. But I think that'd be really cool to do. Some people have said that they wanted to send me stuff or different things, so I think I need to get a P.O. box. And then if you guys wanted to send whatever, you could. Do Antiques Roadshow. I think that'd be fun. I don't know as much, like very much about a lot of antiques, and so that would be the hard thing. Arizona to Baltimore, that's got to be pretty far, right? Let me see. Yeah, I've loved World War II since I was a kid because my grandpas, they were in World War II. One of my grandfathers, he was in the Battle of the Bulge. He landed at Normandy, D-Day +6. So I've always been pretty interested in that. So I wanted to start a YouTube channel from the very beginning, honestly. I was considering doing YouTube for so long, and then eventually I finally was just like, I just got to do it. But people were talking about TikTok a lot, and so I downloaded TikTok and I started making videos. I'd never watched TikToks before or anything like that. And so I downloaded it and started making videos. And then once that wasn't scary, then I started doing YouTube, because YouTube, I don't know, like, especially with long form, just seems so much scarier of a thing to do. Okay, let me catch back up on comments. And so eventually I started a YouTube channel, and then it's been great since then. Yeah, World War II, like, obviously a lot of people talk about World War II, and I do like talking about some of the other stuff. But, you know, it's fun to do World War II. Ooh, Cahoots. Cahoots would be a fun, if that's something you guys want to do, like trivia night or something like that. I don't know. I think that would be a fun thing. Trying to figure out, like, I don't know, different questions. I don't know how Cahoots would work with a live stream. So I guess I would have to, like, look that up or something. I don't know. The Ottoman front in World War I is really interesting. Nobody talks about it nearly as much. I mean, and if they do, they talk about Gallipoli, and then they don't really talk about the Baghdad or the Mesopotamian campaign. Is that the name of it? But then there's also, like, you know, Lawrence of Arabia and all of that stuff, which is a good movie if you've seen Lawrence of Arabia, but it's really long and kind of slow. And so let me see here. There's a lot of comments, so I hope to get to them, but forgive me if I don't see yours. Yeah, you got to start doing YouTube at some point, right? And so I did. And if you were wanting to start YouTube, you should start, because it is really cool, and it's weird, but it's really fun. And then you got to have a random fun conversation with a bunch of people. Let's see it. Yeah, I mean, I don't do a lot of live streams, Liam. This is my first one on YouTube, but, you know, I don't know if you guys want me to do more of them. Maybe I can start trying to figure that out. I don't know. I think that'd be a cool thing to do. But you know, it's not always the easiest thing to do, I guess. Because the one nice thing about being a full-time content creator is I make videos every day, right? But I can kind of do it at my own pace and my own speed. In case you haven't noticed, the videos don't come out at the exact same time every day. Whereas with a live stream, it's like I got to be there at the perfect time, you know. And I try and be pretty consistent with when I post, but, you know, I'm not always. And so, like, some people, they do live streams where they'll do them hours. I don't know how they do it for hours. We've been doing this for 42 minutes already, and that's crazy. But I don't know. There's a lot of people that they do it every single day, and they'll do it for hours. I know a guy that he was doing live streams every single, where it was like a subathon or whatever, where he just kept going as people would keep giving him money, and he was going for like a month, and that just seems insane. I'm getting kind of behind on some of these. Let me see here. I think Christopher Columbus, it's hard to explain in one sentence or even a short. I think that he was a very interesting figure. A lot of the founding fathers, right? Where it's like, and then some of the stuff that they say he did, he wasn't actually a part of, and was slander against him. And I don't know. It's really complicated. I need to read more books about him before I feel comfortable doing like a long form video about Christopher Columbus. But I think that he's a very there's nuance to him, right? Same with like a lot of founding fathers, or early figures, or, you know, I mean, because he's basically like a knight, right? I mean, it's the same time period that they're fighting medieval battles. And so it's like, hey, this guy did a lot of terrible stuff that we would consider nowadays being terrible. But, I mean, Vlad the Impaler, like, I don't remember how many decades, but it's like within decades, Vlad the Impaler and Christopher Columbus, and he was impaling people. So it's like, you know, when you have to consider when people are doing stuff. D-Day Ohio, I think, would be really fun. World War Wisdom does that because he's like a reenactor. And I think that would be a really fun thing to do. I've seen some of his videos. Your grandfather was a ranger and went through Africa as well as Italy. That's super cool. He was captured 2 times and escaped. Oh my gosh, that's awesome, dude. Props to your grandpa. Make one. Oh, so you do like a pre-made and then you share the code during the stream to do a Kahoot. I do think that'd be fun. I have a lot of like trivia cards or games that I normally just do with friends. But I think that would be a fun thing to do. Let me see. There's a lot of these. So if I don't get yours, sorry. Let me see here. Thank you, thank you. I think it would be fun to do more videos and stuff, and do more live streams, because this has been fun so far, I think. Let me see here. So I'm a full-time content creator. I make more money on TikTok than I do on YouTube, since it's a larger following and stuff on there. And then I get more views on TikTok, and the payment per view, I guess, on TikTok is higher than on YouTube. But I would like YouTube to be be more than TikTok at some point, because it's more secure, I guess, right? Where it's like, YouTube's been around for 20 years now. It'll be around for 20 more. And nobody's trying to make it illegal. Whereas TikTok is always like, there's that worry there. Presentation on the Ottoman entry into World War One. Yeah, I mean, I think that when we talk about history, like where it's the Ottomans and World War One or Italy, there's so much. Everything's combined, right? Because it's all history, it's all connected to each other, but we teach it as separate blocks. So it's like, you really can't talk about why the Ottomans and the Italians, like, they went to war against each other before World War One, and so, but no one really ever talks about that. And so there's a lot of different aspects to that. Oh, your friend is a VTuber? That's kind of a funny thing, where it's like doing virtual. So it's like they don't see your face. I met a girl once at a YouTube event. They had an event where they invited a bunch of YouTubers to this thing, and it was kind of fun. I did a video about it. This was back in like May or something. And yeah, and so she had never showed her face before, but she had like a pretty big channel. I don't work at a museum. I just I do content creation. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be doing lots more videos on World War II, about Napoleon, about so many different things. Everything is going to be going. I'm going to be doing videos till I die. Let's see. I would probably, if I was going to go to a reenactment, I would probably watch the first time, and then maybe after that, I might try and do a reenactment. I don't know. I've never done it before, so it's not something I'm as familiar with. So for me, when it comes to like learning history and stuff, is a lot of books, and it's just decades of liking history. And so a lot of times it's like, I'll see a video where somebody will be talking about something in history, but then I'll be like, oh, that reminds me of this other thing. So they're talking about some battle from World War II, but then that makes me think of a battle from the Civil War or something like that. But then also, like, you'll notice a lot of times I'll be doing a lot of videos about MacArthur or something, because I read American Caesar. And so I did a bunch of videos talking about MacArthur because I just read a biography about MacArthur. That was pretty good. So you guys should check that out if you've never read it, and if you want to learn more about MacArthur. Yeah, YouTube isn't as bad as TikTok or Instagram when it comes to censoring videos, but YouTube definitely does. And they're kind of weird, where YouTube will censor a lot of the 9/11 stuff. And I have to be like careful about how I say stuff and what is in frame. And so, like, in my videos, you never see like Hitler or a swastika, because they will strike me for that. Whereas a long form video, I guess they don't as much. But you have to be careful too, because I had a video. I did a Vietnam War video about the Battle of Hue in the Vietnam War, and that one got censored on YouTube, and I had to take it down and readjust it and do all kinds of stuff to it before it finally. And I just had to like blur things, large sections of it, before it would work. And a lot of people have asked me to do a Patreon. I don't know if any of you would be interested in paying for a Patreon, but then on a Patreon, I'd be able to actually talk about a lot of stuff that I don't get to talk about on YouTube or TikTok or wherever else, just because they censor all of it. And so there's a lot of stuff where it's like, I can't even talk about certain topics, because of that. Okay. Let me see here. So if I don't see your video or your comments, sorry, there's a decent amount of them, and I appreciate that. It takes me a decent amount of time to do videos. It really depends, because with short form videos, I have to come up with the idea, I have to research it, make sure the dates are right, and go through different things like that, before before doing it. And then I have to find photos that are good and not terrible and are not owned by anybody or whatever. And so that, it's a whole process to do videos. But it takes a decent amount of time. Now, a long form video takes way more time, because it's basically, you write an essay, right? Like a book report, and then you make a video about it, and then you have to edit it, and you have to find stuff to work with it. And so it's a big process. Assassin's Creed, I have not actually, I've watched a lot of people play Assassin's Creed, but I didn't have, I was a Nintendo guy growing up. And most of the Assassin's Creed games I don't think were on Nintendo. And then I think they were also rated M, and I didn't play any of those until I was an adult. And so I watched a lot of people play Assassin's Creed, but I've never actually done it myself, so I don't know. But I have heard that it's pretty accurate. I mean, there was that whole thing with Notre Dame where they were able to use the 3D scans or something from Assassin's Creed to help rebuild it or something like that. I feel like I remember hearing. Nebula. I've heard of Nebula. I've seen people talk about Nebula, but I don't actually know enough about it to know what it is exactly. Like, I know that it's like YouTubers doing it, but I don't really know too much about that, generally. So, let's see. Okay. Oh, you would pay for a Patreon. Well, that'd be nice. You don't feel like you need to, but if you want to throw me money right now, I guess live streams aren't taxed anymore, so the government won't take any of it, because it's tip, no tax on tips, whatever. And I think Patreon might be as well. I need to ask my accountant about that, but I would love to do a history tour going through the States. I think it'd be really fun to get a van or a bus or whatever and do a van life, traveling around the country, doing a bunch of stuff like that. I think that'd be really fun. But that's also a lot. That's a big commitment, to uproot my life and do that, So I think that'd be really fun, and that's something that I'd like to do at some point. But that's a whole process, Yeah, I think it's important when it comes to history that's bad. Snake, Jaguar. I think learning all the parts of history, I think, is great. Oh, thank you, John. Thanks for the money. Woo! I appreciate that, honestly. And yeah, I appreciate that. I like it. And so, yeah, I think learning history, even if it's not nice history, I think is great. I've thought about getting a Nintendo Switch. I don't have one. I have an Xbox One right now, but I haven't gotten a Switch. So Nebula's, it's like YouTube, but it's owned by YouTubers. Is there like a buy-in process for that kind of thing? I'm not really sure how that works. Thanks, Constantine. I love making shorts. My favorite period to study, I hop around a lot. I mean, I do a lot of like American history. And there's a lot of good info about it. And so I really do like American history, but I'll read different books about the War of the Roses or, different things like that. For video games, I play video games. I play the Xbox. I do a lot of Battlefield, Battlefield 1, Battlefield 5. Not so much Battlefield 2042 because that sucks. And then recently I've been playing Black Ops Cold War, but only prop hunt, where you're a little prop and you're running around. If you've ever seen those videos, it's honestly so fun. It's so stupid, but it's so fun. I'll have to look into Nebula, because I feel like they're like, as a person to be able to post on there, at least like with some of them, it's like you have to like get invited or buy in or do different stuff like that. I don't know how that works. Let's see. I saw Enlisted. I've seen people play Enlisted. I've never played it. It looks fun. I like all the war games. All of those are pretty fun. But I haven't played it. I've thought about trying to figure out how to do streaming, or do like live streams while playing video games, but I don't know how you do that, and I don't know. It feels like a lot. I'm not sure what the process is of setting that up. And this is my first live stream on YouTube, so like I don't know if it's. I'd like to do more of them, right? This is fun, but then it's also, I don't know what I'm doing. Favorite conqueror? I don't know. I think they're all interesting, right? I don't know if I really have one where I'm like, oh, I love Alexander the Great or something. Because I don't know. I think that people starting wars just to conquer things is like a little like, I don't know, right? But then at the same time, they're so interesting. They're such interesting people, and the history is so interesting. And the history that I like talking about the most is war. Whether it's World War II or Napoleon or anything. And so I do think like Napoleon is really cool. But I don't know if I have a favorite, Magic the Gathering. So I have played some Magic the Gathering. My brother was way more into it, and he loves it. And I think it's really fun to play. I would play with his cards, but that's the kind of thing where I know if I got into Magic, I would end up just spending so much money. And that's a hard thing to get into, because once you buy in, then you're buying more and more and more. And so it's cool, and I know I would enjoy it. But it's a hard. It's kind of like all those other things where it's like you have to be buying a lot of them. It's been a long time since I used to do Pokemon cards and Yu-Gi-Oh growing up, but it's been a long time since I've done any of that. Let's see. Okay, we're coming up on 120 years from the Treaty of Portsmouth. That's cool. Teddy Roosevelt's a really interesting figure, because there's stuff that I really like about him, right? He's like a cool, manly guy, but then there's also stuff that I'm like, I'm not a huge fan that you threw the election to Wilson, because I hate Wilson. And so, like, I don't know. And running for a third term, I don't like that. So I don't know. Teddy Roosevelt's he's a fickle figure for me, because I like him in a lot of ways. There's The River of Doubt is a great book if you've never read it, where he goes and he discovers a river on the Amazon, the Roosevelt River, and he almost dies in the process. It's really good. He's such a cool character. And he has great quotes like, would you rather, you can either rust out or wear out as a human, where it's like rusting is just like sitting there and eventually you die, or you wear out because you work so hard. And so he wore out, and he died really early. HRE state, I don't know what that is. You'd have to tell me what that is. Listen to Sabaton's pretty cool, right? I love that they do like a lot of history stuff. I'm all over the place with music. I like a lot of different music. Like I would say maybe my favorite band's probably like Rise Against, but then a lot of those other like All American Rejects is kind of doing this big comeback right now, and some of their new songs are pretty good, and obviously their old songs are great. And so I go back and forth between like pretty heavy rock or punk, or but then every now and again you just listen to some silly song, or what's that song? Highwaymen. I forget. It's Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson and all those guys, where it's like these old timey country singers that they did that, and like that's a real catchy song. Um, um, yeah, I mean, Magic cards are one of those things that I'm sure I could get into, and maybe someday I will when I got more money. But um, well, I think so. So you're saying you don't like history that much, but you just got to figure out what type of history you like. I think everything is history. Um, it's like if you really like baseball, baseball has some great history. If you like cheese, you could learn about the history of cheese. If you're really into sport, or I don't know, like any kind of anything is history, right? Like I like to focus on like the sort of more mainstream, where it's like war history or independence or whatever. But there's so many different types of history. Um, Hello from Argentina. Sí, hablo español. Sí, fluido en español, de hecho. No, no hablo lo tanto ahora, pero sí, lo hablo español. Um, favorites. Oh, in the Holy Roman Empire. Um, oh, the Holy Roman Empire. That's really funny. Um, the cheese caves. I mean, those are crazy. The United States has a lot of different stuff. Like we have a cheese reserve. We have. I mean, I talked about in a video somewhat recently the opium reserve, where we had large storage, enough opium that they could convert it into all the different types of I don't know, pain meds for over a year worth of pain medicine for the United States. They had that in reserve, which is crazy. And they stored that at West Point, at their gold storage. But then, like, there's like a pork reserve. There's all kinds of really crazy reserves that the U.S. has. They used to have a helium reserve, but they got rid of it somewhat recently. Um, I mean, the Holy Roman Empire was an empire. I don't know how holy it was, nor how Roman it was, but it was definitely an empire. um, I think Greek mythology is really interesting. I don't know as much about Greek mythology as a lot of other topics, especially history-wise, but it's definitely cool. And I think there's a lot of different interesting aspects to it, and I think uh, understanding mythology of the Greek people helps you understand the history of the ancient Greeks. Um, Plus, like the Iliad and the Odyssey are super interesting. It's been a long time since I've read them, but I've been thinking about giving them a read again, because they're very cool. Um, I think it was an empire. The Holy Roman Empire was definitely an empire. It wasn't the best empire at different points, Uh, hey, boyos fishing in an outdoor. I'll see you later. Thanks for watching. Um, yeah, Instagram starts translating everything in Spanish as well as like every language, I guess. For the so for the USS Missouri, it's like all my videos are now in multiple different languages. Um, but then also on YouTube, I think they'll translate them. Now on my Instagram, I somehow made it so now I can't actually watch I can't figure out how to switch it back, and stay back because I'll switch it back to English and then I'll switch back to Spanish and it's me speaking Spanish, and it does like an okay job, but it's not the best. Um, Whereas all the other languages, some people tell me that it's good, and then sometimes it's not. So I don't know. That's kind of a funny translation thing. I haven't played it. Should I? Is it good? I'm mainly a Battlefield guy. I play a lot of Battlefield. Battlefield 5, Battlefield 1, most especially. I'm maybe I'll play Battlefield 6 when it comes out. It really just depends. Treaty of Paris was signed today. Nice. Which Treaty of Paris? That's the real question. Because there are a bunch of them. I'm guessing probably. Uh, okay, let me see. Yeah. I'll see you, Luca. Um, Shakespeare and his works. Shakespeare, Shakespeare is really interesting. I think Romeo and Juliet is one of his worst. Like I haven't read all of Shakespeare because there's a decent amount of it. Um, but was it Midsummer's Night? I think it's been a long time since I've read any Shakespeare. I've been working my way through reading a lot of the books that they make you read in high school, as well as like a lot of the other like big, very famous books. I've been trying to work my way through, but a lot of them are a bit of a slog, so it's like they take a while, and so that takes a bit of time before I actually. And I like to take a break before trying to read a next big book or old timey book. So it's like I'll read a fantasy book or a sci-fi book, like if you've done Red Rising or anything like that. Those are really good. But then I'll go back to an old book, and then I do a lot of nonfiction books as part of coming up with ideas. Hey, you subbed a few minutes ago. Yeah, thank you for being one of the 100,000. Isn't that crazy? 100,000 people is a lot of people. World Cup. I'm not the biggest soccer guy. When I lived in Mexico, I played some soccer. You can't really see it anymore. I headed a ball and I made the goal, but then somebody else headbutted me and I had a scar and I had to get stitches, and it's like that big, but it's kind of gone now because that was like 12 years ago. So I played some soccer and I've watched some soccer, but I'm not as big of a soccer guy. But yeah, I don't know. It depends if some if I was randomly like, oh, I mean, it's kind of my same feeling about like the Olympics or any of those other big events where it's like it'd be cool to go, but um, it's not enough for me to want to do it. Um, yeah. Well, let's see. I've been streaming for 69 minutes. Nice. Um, but any other questions? Anything else before I sign off? Otherwise, I just gotta say thank you guys all so much for subscribing. Getting to 100,000, I think, it's insane. Honestly, I mean, I've been doing this for 3 years on YouTube, but also I've been wanting to do this for so longer than that. And so getting here and being like, okay, well, 100,000, like, one, they give me the plaque, right? I'll get a silver play button at some point in the mail. Like, it's so incredible. And it's so cool. And then being able to be like, this is really possible, right? Where it's like, I can do this forever, you know? And I'm definitely not making enough money that I could, like, I'm like, ooh, rolling in dough. But it's like I'm making enough money to pay rent, right? And I think that's really cool. And hopefully I'll just keep growing and making more money and making more videos and just keep on going forever. I'd like to do more live streams. I think it's kind of fun. But it's also kind of a time commitment, you know? So it's like, it's hard to say exactly when. So it's definitely something I'd like to do more. Oscar, I've always been a history fan. When I was a little kid, I was watching history documentaries, like probably younger than I should have, seeing World War II violence, but I have always liked it. And then I would get books as a child that were about history, but, you know, like, were kid books and stuff like that, and that just made me like it more. Like, I remember one about Patton. I remember some about, like, founding fathers, about ancient Romans, like, you know, like, just those, like, little books for kids, and I think those are so fun. And I don't know, I can see myself wanting to write some of those books at some point, as well as maybe some, like, full-length books someday. I don't know at what point. Well, thank you all so much for being so great, and for sending me some money. That's pretty cool, of those of you who did. Yeah, I hope I can reach 1 million too. That'd be so fun. 1 million is so many, though. There's so many great channels that don't have 1 million. So that's kind of one of those things where it's like a little bit of chance. Whereas I feel like 100,000, like, I worked for this, right? Whereas, like, if I get to 1 million, like, I hope I can get there. But that is, like, that's a crazy amount of people. So I don't know. We'll see if I can ever get to 1 million, but I hope so. I'll keep going, so we'll see. Thank you. If you guys have ideas for live streams, I don't know, let me know what they would be. Maybe I'll do, like, a poll or something. I don't know what. I haven't watched that many live streams. Like, I'll watch them afterwards a lot of times. And so I don't really know what people do on live streams besides just kind of talking and answering questions. So let's see. So for editing my videos, I just do it just, like, on my phone within the TikTok app, and then with my long form videos, I do it on my computer. But I still just use iMovie. A lot of people are saying I should switch to something better, but let's see. A board game called Patton's Best. Is it a World War II board game? I do love a good World War II board game. Play. Kindergarten. Oh, it's so funny. Oh yeah, I love Dan Carlin. His podcasts are great. When a Dan Carlin podcast, because they just kind of come out randomly, like every 6 months or something. I don't know. I will just be like, okay, this is good. What I'm going to be doing today is listen to Dan Carlin. Thank you all so much. Yeah, I attempt to have some good energy. I don't know. I feel like, definitely based off of past comments on other videos, people are like, oh, you're terrible. We don't like your energy. But clearly 100,000 of you like my energy, so I appreciate that. I do think it'd be fun to play a history-based video game. I play a lot of Battlefield 1, which is World War I, and Battlefield 5, which is World War II. And those are super fun. And I really like those. And so those, and then there's a lot of other games that are pretty fun. So I don't know, at some point maybe I would, but I would have to I'd have to figure out how people do that. But I could see maybe doing that. I don't know. Yeah, thank you all so much. My favorite founding father? I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, George Washington, I think, is such a interesting figure. John Adams, like everybody hated him in his day, but I think John Adams is really fascinating. Um, and then like Ben Franklin might be my favorite. It's hard to say. But then you also have like Thomas Jefferson. I mean, there's so many good ones, and like they're not perfect men, but they were interesting, and they're like with John Adams recently, I did a video talking about how he was not that great of a father. And so like his kids, like John Quincy Adams did really well with having kind of like an oppressive father that required a lot from him. Whereas like the rest of his kids did not do well with that. And so I've been thinking a lot about that. I don't have kids yet. I'd hope to be a father someday, but there's a lot of these famous people that like weren't very good parents. There's a book called Churchill and Son, where it talks about Winston Churchill and his relationship with his father, who was like terrible, and then his relationship with his son, where he was trying to be a better father than his father because his father was horrible, but then he still wasn't that good of a father. And I think that's really interesting, where it's like these really important figures that are just not good parents. Let's see here. Well, thank you so much. You guys are so great, honestly. Like I would probably be doing these videos even if no one was watching. And I mean, sometimes I have videos that just bomb, just nobody watches them. But I like making them, and I like talking about history. But I definitely appreciate that you guys are here, that you care enough to subscribe and have 100,000 of you. And especially the fact that subscribing, right? That's a big commitment. I love YouTube. I love watching YouTube. And it takes a lot to get to someone to subscribe to a channel. So I definitely appreciate that you guys actually subscribe. I think you guys are so nice. I've heard some good things about those games. I haven't played any of them, but maybe I should. Oh, hello from the Philippines. I talk about so many different history things. I mean, World War II is a big part of it. The Philippines, I've been talking about the Philippines a lot lately, I feel like, in terms of World War II. And my mom used to live there for a few years, and so I have a bit of a connection to the Philippines too. I made in high school, in my Spanish class, they wanted me to do a report on a Latino country. And I was able to convince my Spanish teacher that the Philippines, because I knew a lot about the Philippines and I had just done a report on it, counted as a Spanish country because Tagalog takes from Spanish, and it was once a Spanish colony. And so I went through the different connections between it, even if it's not like Mexico level Spanish speaking country. I was able to like kind of be like, it's close, right? And the teacher agreed. So I think I got an A. I don't know. But Indonesia is a really interesting place. I'd like to go there. Seems like they have really good beaches and interesting history. And so there's definitely a lot of history that a lot of you are like, talk about this or talk about that. And there's so much history that I want to talk about. And I'll be doing videos till I die. So, and I got at least 40 to 50 years left, hopefully. So, yeah. Yeah, I would love to come to the Philippines. I'd love to come to go to throughout. That's something that I think would be really fun to do, backpacking through different countries. I don't think I would go like like hippie backpacking level. That's a little bit too much for me. But being able to like go to the different countries, I think it'd be really fun to go to the Philippines, go to the different places like where MacArthur landed, go to Corregidor, go to Manila. Depending on the island, depends on how safe it is. Like my mom lived in Mindanao, which is kind of too dangerous now. There's a YouTuber that got kidnapped from there somewhat recently, even. So I don't know if I'd risk Mindanao, but yeah. And so I mean, I would say Philippines counts as a Spanish-speaking country, even if it's not directly Spanish anymore. So Nerf Elite Dart. That's funny. I don't think I would want to be a high school teacher just because, like, what's so great about this, right, is you want to be here. You want to watch me talk about history. Whereas with high school or even some college, right, depending on the level of college, they don't want to be there. They don't care. Whereas with history, I think what's so fun about this, with YouTube, with any of the content creation, is you guys want to be here. We get to talk about history, and we get to be really dorky and nerdy about history and enjoy it. And you guys want to learn, right? And I can also do it not having to deal with like a bureaucracy about doing all this stuff. I'm able to make money. At this point, it's not like like a bajillion dollars or something like that. It's very normal levels of money, but it's enough that it's like I get to do this as a full-time thing. I get to be a dork and talk about history, and I love that. Let me see here. Hey, love from Australia. So speaking of Gallipoli, my great uncle was Australian, and I mean technically he was English, and then he moved to Australia. He died in World War One, not at Gallipoli. He died. Oh, I forget which battle. But he was one of the first few people. I mean, first big bunch of people who died in World War One of just throwing them at machine guns for no reason. I don't. I have been meaning to make a video about him, as well as go. I want to go to Europe, and I want to go to like World War One sites. I want to go to World War Two sites and do a video specifically about my uncle that died in World War One, because no one else will, and he didn't have kids, because he was young and he died for no reason, in a trench. So I think it'd be really cool to be able to do that. And I mean, I really have loved history for a long time. So when it comes to like high school and stuff, some of my high school teachers and other teachers, I had some teachers that loved history, and I had some teachers that hated talking about history, but that was their job. And it was clear that they probably should have retired a long time ago or chosen a different career. And then like you'd have kids that like they don't care, and so it's like I just never wanted to do that. And with this, it's like there's no curriculum. I got to just talk about whatever I want. If I want to talk about World War II every day for a year, I could. But I could also hop around and do whatever it is that I want to talk about, which I think is what's great. And yeah, it's like I don't have to listen to a plan or anything like that. I think it'd be fun to do a museum. I have a lot of historical artifacts. Not a lot. I have some. And I want to get more. And that would be definitely a really fun thing to do at some point if I ever got big enough and have a museum. I don't know. Who knows? Like I feel like there's so many different paths I could go down when it comes to being a history content creator, where it's like I could write books, I could have a museum, I could have multiple channels where I talk about different stuff. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Yeah, and so it's like when you're doing history in college or in high school or whatever, where it's like you don't get to go in depth in a lot of those, right? If you go and get a master's or a PhD in history, then you're gonna like get really, really in depth about different stuff. But I get to talk about whatever I want, and I can go really in depth. I can talk about a specific front. I can talk about a specific battle. I can talk about some random aspect of it, and I think that's really fun. Where I'm sure that like there is a lot of issues with it, and it's like I'm not going to know every little detail like somebody who has a PhD in history. But then again, I also probably know more in some aspects because I'll go really in depth about certain things. And I think education isn't just professional education where you pay somebody to do it. It's also being able to go and whether it's a YouTube video or it's a book or whether it's a podcast, whether it's a documentary or original documents, being able to go through and go into them on your own time, I think is also education. And I think learning is fun. And I think that's a big part of it. And that's awesome that you're majoring in history. This is actually my first live on YouTube, but so far it's been fun. I mean, it's been 85 minutes already. Goodness gracious. But yeah, I think airships in World War One are so interesting. I think so many things are interesting, but I think airships are cool. There's a great channel, The Great War, on YouTube that they did like week by week, day by day World War One, and then they did Then the same guys, Indy, Nidell, and some of these other guys, they did World War Two, where it's like day by day, going through all the intricate stuff about World War One and World War Two, and it's so cool. If you haven't seen those channels, you should definitely check them out. They do a really good job with that kind of thing. Yeah, history teachers a lot of times they're just like football coaches, and they're just being forced to teach. Like I had one of my history teachers. He was just a football coach. He didn't really want to be there. He wanted to do football, right? And he was just kind of forced to do history as part of that. And so he didn't care at all, right? And it's like, that's not cool. Whereas I hope, right, whether you're in high school or you're 20 or 30 or 50, and you get to watch a YouTube video about history, I think being able to like enjoy it and learn something, and I think is great. Yeah, I'm an American in terms of accent. But I'm Californian, so there's not like a super thick accent either way, right? It's not like a Boston or a New Yorker or something. So it's not as easy to place because it's more mellow, I suppose. So with a lot of artifacts, like I have some that are like history ones or from family history. So it's like I have a uniform that's a World War One uniform. I have a Spanish American War uniform that's just from ancestors of mine. But then I also want to kind of get into collecting. I think that'd be pretty fun. I don't think I have watched that Cheeky Breaky Gaming and such. I'll have to look that up. I think my favorite source for information is books. I think books are just great because they'll do a really intricate random stuff that you might not see somewhere else. And there's a lot of good books out there. And then there's even stuff that like, how is that interesting? And then somehow they make it like with David McCullough, if you've ever read his book about the Brooklyn Bridge or the Johnstown flood, where it's like, those are really interesting books about a topic that I feel like is not that interesting. But the Johnstown flood, for instance, is insane. If you have not read that book, you need to read that book. It seems horrible and just awful, and I'm so glad I wasn't there, but so fascinating at the same time. I would say my favorite book is my favorite book overall, maybe even, is probably All Quiet on the Western Front. I love that book. I've read that book so many times. I'd love to get like a first edition or something at some point. And obviously, it's not a history book, right? It's fiction, but it's so good, you know. And there's some really good First World War books. There's some different autobiographies of some of the men that served there. It's hard. But with autobiographies, especially of soldiers, it's kind of hit or miss. Some of them are just like awesome and intense and insane. And then some of them, kind of like with politicians and autobiographies, some of them are just so dry that they're kind of hard to get through. But if I don't see one of your comments or if I don't get to it, I'm sorry. They're hard to see them all. I try and the ones that were somebody sent me money for, I try and answer those, but because they're big and I see them. But let me see. Yeah, this is my first live stream on YouTube, so I'd like to do more. It's been fun so far. Managed to do an hour and a half of this already. Yeah, the Great War channel is so fun. I really like the Great War. Like that, and then they worked. I don't know if you know this. The Great War YouTube channel. They worked with Battlefield 1. Like if you play Battlefield 1, and there'll be like little things of like, in the Battle of Ypres, this happened, or this weapon was this and this, right? They worked with them, and they were the ones who came up with all of those different ones. They made sure that the game was accurate. They did all of that. And how cool is that? Like, that is so incredibly cool that a YouTuber, and this was 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, because they started it was week by week from 2014, so it was 100 years later, exactly, week by week, that they were doing that. And that's so cool. Let me see here. See, World War I stuff I think would be really cool to get into. Trench art looks so cool. I want trench art from World War I so badly, and I just need to find some. Because I really want some of that, because it's just so cool. And a lot of the this is kind of like random, but the belt buckles, World War I belt buckles of the different guys, the different sides, they all look so cool. And I've been thinking, like, there's like the people that have like a Batman belt buckle or something like that. I'm like, I feel like I need to get some like historically, like 100-year-old belt buckle, and I wear it. I feel like that'd be really cool. Let me see. The movie, there's been a couple different movies of All Quiet on the Western Front. The most recent one I think was Netflix's. And all of them have been great. I think they've been so fun. All Quiet on the Western Front, I believe now, is in public domain. I don't know if it's like a specific translation or whatever that's in public domain, but it has been more than 100 years at least since some of the first ones. And I was thinking it would be fun to make that, because the audio book isn't very long. The book itself isn't very long. And I was like, that'd be fun to make an audiobook of me reading All Quiet on the Western Front, and then just put that on Amazon and see if it does well or whatever. I don't know. I think that'd be pretty fun. I would say the new book, or the new movie for All Quiet on the Western Front, it's different from like the original, because there was one made in like the 20s, the black and white one, whatever year that came out. That was like, it's so good. I mean, it's slow, but it's amazing. Whereas this newer one, it's a little faster, it's a little bit more modern, but I feel like it still hits all the main points, even if they change some of the stuff about it. But it's still very good, and I would definitely recommend watching it. It's in German though, so that's like the one negative. Let me see here. So some different historians. I've been reading a lot of William Manchester. So he did American Caesar. He has a 3-part book series on Churchill. His autobiography, because he served in World War II, was really good. And he went back. So he was a Marine in World War II. And then he went back to all of the major battles, because he was in Guadalcanal, he was in Tarawa, he was in Okinawa. But then he goes to like the Philippines, he goes to New Guinea, he goes to all of the different islands these main battles happened. And he sees what they are. And this was back in the 70s, and he like talks about it and stuff. Very good book. I don't remember what the title is off the top of my head, but that was a good book. I was thinking about doing live streams where I just do a book report, because I read a lot of books, and a lot of times I don't actually talk about them at all. So you guys will have to let me know if that's worth, if you think that's a good idea or not, because I think that'd be fun to, both for you guys, but then also just for myself to remember which books I've read. Because when I read almost 200 books, like 180 something books last year, it's hard to remember all of them, and like, I'll read back to back multiple books about the same topic, and then I don't remember what something happened, when that was. I think it's hard to remember, like, was this in this book or was it in this one, where I've read multiple books about George Washington, or multiple books about Eisenhower, right? And it's like, well, which book mentions this random little thing? Rutherford B. Hayes. That's funny. Back then, so many actors were veterans. And I mean, I think that also really, like, when they're making a war movie about World War II or Vietnam later on, and you have actors who were actually served in combat, that really, I think that that gives it extra realism. You know, I mean, it's kind of like in Lord of the Rings, where Saruman, I'm blanking his name right now, but he was SAS in World War II, and he would talk about where when you stab somebody, they actually just go, ugh, right? Versus, Christopher Lee, thank you, because initially they wanted him to kind of like scream out or something, and he's like, that's not what the sound that somebody makes when you stab somebody, right? And he's like, that is like one of my favorite. I love Lord of the Rings generally. I've read the books so many times. I've watched the movies a million times. And those are so good. But then also just having like Christopher Lee were so cool, you know, having those different aspects. But even like The Great Escape, almost all those guys in The Great Escape were World War II veterans. And so I think that's just really cool. So yeah, Christopher Lee, he was SAS, so he was Special Air Service in World War II. So he's like Black Ops, and he did a lot of stabbing, from what I understand, as well as probably seeing people. That guy was so cool. Yeah. Let me see here. You cast 76mm tank rounds like at the factory, or that's really cool. However you do it. Train the Great Escape. It's been a while since I've seen the Great Escape, so I don't remember if there was a train. They built a track underground, and that's based off a true story, which is pretty awesome. Yeah, flechettes. So in World War One, they would drop flechettes, which they continued using, and they still have some weapons that use flechettes instead of bombs. So instead of dropping like a bomblet, they do flechettes. So it'll be like in the Vietnam War. There's some documentary, I cannot remember what documentary it is because I've tried to go back and find it. But there is a weapon that in the Vietnam War they would drop out of airplanes, and it would separate flechettes, which are just like nails, and it drops a nail every inch over several acres, like 10 acres, and there's an inch, every inch there's a nail. And soldiers would talk about them walking into the forest, because they would just drop these in the forest where they know they're enemy. And they would walk in, and there would just be enemies just nailed to trees all over the place. And it's like, that is so hardcore, and that's so crazy. But in World War One, they had flechettes where it's just like a giant dart, and they're just dropping them on soldiers. It's because like with a grenade or whatever. I mean, World War One was so primitive in a lot of ways, where it's like you can just throw a grenade out because it might not actually get to the ground. And so I don't know. It's so crazy. Let me see here. I've never owned a German car. A lot of them are cool. Mercedes are nice looking, but they're also pretty complicated from what I understand. And can get kind of pricey when it comes to fixing them up. But I'm not a huge car expert, I suppose. That's really cool. So do you cast the shells, Sam? Do you cast the shells for actual tanks, or do you make them like for fun, or do you have like a business where you sell them? That's really cool. However you do it. I mean, the pickle helmet is really interesting. I want to own one. I want to buy one at some point. I think that'd be really cool. But I mean, obviously they weren't that effective, so they stopped using them. But they're definitely cool. Bomb by plane. I know the first use of airplanes in combat was in the, I think it was in the Italian Ottoman War, which might have been Sofia, Bulgaria. But yeah, Italo-Turkish War. Yeah, 1912, 1914, something like that. No, well, it had to have been before 1914. So it had to have been 1912, something like that, yeah. Yeah, I bet. I have a decent amount of helmets. I have some helmets. I don't know where they are right now. They're over there somewhere. But I think getting into like helmet collecting, I think would be really cool. I would like to own every helmet that's easily ownable, and not because like some of them are like crazy priced. So having like World War I helmets, World War II helmets, some different ones like that, I think would be really cool. Yeah, 1911, 1912, 1913, those were all like right there. I did a video about it not that long ago, but I'm bad at dates. Just ask the women I go out with. That's a bad joke. But I'm 31. Hopefully I look it. Although I was at the store one time and a girl thought I was like a teenager, and that was weird. I was like, no, I'm old. The M4 Sherman, I think was a really great tank, honestly. I think that it's, I mean, people like to crap on it, but honestly, that's mostly post-war propaganda by the Germans, talking about like how amazing the German tanks were compared to American tanks. I think in a lot of ways they were much better. I did go to BYU Idaho. Yeah. BYUI was a lot of fun. I loved it, and it was a great education and not that expensive compared to a lot of the other colleges. Yeah, I am a member, actually. Mid-20s? Well, I mean, I'm not that far away from mid-20s, so I suppose that's not that crazy. Thank you so much. Thank you for subscribing, all of you. Honestly, I don't know. People will, talk about like what period of time you want to live in. I want to live right now. Nowhere else in history could I be a YouTuber professionally, or be able to have access to penicillin if I get an infection or whatever. I think it'd be really cool to be able to like pop into different parts of history where it's like getting to see the Revolutionary War, the signing of the Declaration of Independence, stuff like that. But like, I wouldn't want to actually live back then. That'd be terrible. Although it'd be pretty cool to be able to go back in history, find some gold, or buy stocks in a company, and then pop back into the future, and then be rich. Well, thank you. I try to be positive. I feel like it's, even if it's a serious topic when it comes to history, I think you can still be positive about a lot of it. Before 1900, I would say the independence movements, right? From, I mean, even so, 1776, the United States declares independence from Great Britain, and following that, you have the French, you have Mexico, you have Haiti, you have all these different countries that start declaring independence and getting their independence, and from there we get freedom. Right? Now, there was like the English Civil War and some of those other movements before that. But once we get the American independence movement and then onward, the world gets so much more free. And while there's definitely times where it's like we get like the Soviet era or some of these other ones where it gets like really terrible in certain parts of the world, we're so much more free generally as humans nowadays, and over time. Because like before it was like only kings and stuff got to have any kind of rights. And then it went to like lords, and then it spread out from there. And like with the French Revolution, what's so crazy is the French people were still serfs up until the French Revolution. Whereas like the British, they had started getting some freedom with Magna Carta after the anarchy of 1153, something like that. Where it's like they started getting more and more freedom. And so they had a certain amount of legislature. They had belief in human rights, and so like that gave John Locke and Samuel, or not Samuel Adams, Adam Smith, and some of those others, like the ability to philosophize about human rights, right? And so being able to just go into all that, and then from there on, they just start free. You know, all these countries, they start being free, and I think that no one ever really talks about the anarchy of the 1100s of Britain, where it's like people go crazy because, and then there's like the peasant revolts and stuff where they're sick and tired of not having any freedom. And so then we have like the French Revolution that's super bloody, or the Russian Revolution that's super bloody. And it's because these people were peasants and they hated it and it was awful. And then they're like, these other people have freedom. I want freedom. And so then like, that happens. Now, I think what's so great is at the fall of the Soviet Union, all those countries got to be free without having a horrible war. You know, I mean, there was some like Romania where they like lined up Ceausescu, I want to say his name was, and shot him on Christmas. But like for the most part, like they were peaceful revolutions, and so I think that that's really interesting. A great podcast is called Revolutions, actually, if you guys are looking for a guy who wants to go way more in depth about revolutions, where he has like 1 billion episodes about like the French Revolution. He spent so much time on that, like a decade. So many episodes. It's very good. All right, let's see. I've really gotten behind on answering you guys. Let me see here. Yeah, I mean, there's so much good history in everywhere. I mean, I have a video about that where I go to a prisoner of war camp and a Japanese internment camp in Utah, where it's just like, this is just a local small thing, right? But it's like there's history everywhere, and you can find it everywhere. And so like pioneer history, like there's a lot around here in Utah. But, you know, there's interesting history everywhere you go, you know. Honestly, so, okay, between Nixon and JFK, I think people care about JFK so much more because he got assassinated than they would have if he would have just lived and just been a whatever president. And I think Nixon is so interesting because he's like this underdog, and he believed he was the underdog his whole life, where it's like he was poor and he was constantly trying to like go to college, and it was so hard for him. And so he felt like an underdog, and then he is in the military and he's an officer, but like a lot of the other officers are like these high class people and look down on him. And so he feels like the underdog. And so his whole life, he feels like an underdog. He tries to become like, he becomes a senator, and then he becomes a vice president, and nobody likes him. And he feels like it's just because people are picking on him. And then he tries to become president, and then he fails. And then he runs for governor of California, and he fails. And he's like, you're not going to have old Dick Nixon to kick around anymore. And then he goes and he becomes president. And then he starts spying with the whole Watergate thing because, and I think so much of it, who knows how much he knew beforehand, like that's kind of up for debate. But like a big part of it, I feel like, is that he always thought himself as the underdog. He thought he was going to lose. And then he had one of the most blowouts of a president, of anybody in a presidential election. Like he cleared the map. And so he didn't need, I mean, you shouldn't be spying on political campaigns generally, but like he had like this big giant thing, right? And then he totally just ruined everything. Whereas like he did a lot of good as president. He won the Vietnam War. That's my feeling on the Vietnam War is LBJ was terrible. Got us in Vietnam for no reason. We shouldn't have gotten in, but once we were in, you got to win. And he didn't have a plan for winning. And then Nixon actually was able to figure it out. We signed a treaty with the Vietnamese. We leave. We're out of Vietnam. And then once Watergate happens, and then everything starts happening, Congress says they're not going to do the bullet for bullet, tank for tank, which was they agreed with South Vietnam that they were going to continue supporting them with every bullet they shot. They would give them another one. If they lost a tank, they would give them another one. So it was like, well, we're going to keep with this level of readiness. And then they went back on that and they said, we're not doing that anymore. And then with all of this political discord and everything that was happening, North Vietnam was like, this is our opportunity. And they invaded, and then they took over South Vietnam. And so it's like, we weren't even in Vietnam at the time. And so I feel like it's kind of a separate thing. It's kind of like the war in Iraq was over. We left Iraq. And then, but because of political instability, ISIS came in, right? And it's like, well, it's kind of a separate conflict. It's all together, because history it's all connected. But at the same time, it is like kind of a different thing, But, let's see here. You guys are I'm so far behind with a lot of these. A lot of you have some very interesting things, and a lot of the video ideas. I'm going to be making so many videos. I constantly do a lot of videos. I want to do long form videos more, and get more into that. If you haven't watched any of my old ones, you should. But I want to do more of those because I can really get in depth with a topic, and with a short. A lot of times it's like, people don't want to watch a video. They won't stick around for the 5 seconds to get into the algorithm to have a video do well enough or whatever. Whereas like with a long form video, you have more leeway, I feel like, being able to talk about a weird history topic. Yeah, and so I don't know, I'd like to. Yeah, 100,000 guys. For all of you who have joined more recently, thank you all so much for coming along on this journey. Get to 100,000 on YouTube, which is crazy. It is so many people. And 100,000 on YouTube is so much more than on TikTok is a lot easier to get subscribers. I'm at 229,000, I want to say, on there. On Instagram is kind of weird. I don't really understand Instagram. I have 157,000, I think, on there. But sometimes a video does well, sometimes it's terribly on there, and I just never really know why. And I don't get paid on Instagram, so it doesn't. It's harder for me to care about Instagram. Whereas with YouTube, I feel like it's a little bit more consistent, but every now and again something will just do really good. But yeah, thank you all for coming on here. And if you think I should do more live streams, let me know. If you want to let me know what topics for a live stream, because I don't really do a whole lot of these. This kind of Q&A thing where is kind of fun, and then it's also just kind of me talking about random stuff, doing videos, or doing I think book reports. I think would be a fun thing. Also, the fact that they just made if you do donations on here, you don't have to by any means, but those aren't going to be taxed anymore, I guess, up to a certain point. Something like that is part of the no tax on tips. So I guess I could be sitting here with a cup asking for tip money. But I don't know. Yeah, I just do more live streams and just ramble about history topics like I've been doing. I think that's really fun. I can talk about history all day, every day, which is kind of what I do. And doing history trivia, I think would be fun. I have this random, those big wheels that you spin it and you can write different things on it. That I don't know, school fairs growing up, they had those, and you could win stuff or whatever. I got one of those for free one time. It was just in a pile of garbage, and I found it and I was like, oh, I'm gonna take it, and I've held on to it because I think it would be fun to do on a live stream of I don't know, write in different trivia or something, I don't know, and then spin it. I don't know how that would work, but I think that'd be kind of fun. But I'd have to figure out what to do with that. But yeah, we're coming up on 2 hours. Oh my goodness. I did not think I would be on here for that long. I'm amazed that you guys have stuck with me for 2 hours. I'm not, used to talking this long. And so, yeah, I mean, well, and so like in terms of Arab Spring and ISIS and stuff, I mean, so much, everything in history is connected, right? It's like you can't talk about World War II without talking about World War One. You can't talk about World War One without talking about the Italo-Turkish War. You can't talk about that without talking about like a lot of the other stuff. And so it's like you can just keep going back and back and back. And some of it, like there's a book, I forget what it's called, but he was like Turnings or something like that. I forget what the book was. I wasn't a huge fan of it. Other people do. Other people really like it, but it's like kind of talking about like how there's a cycle of history or something like that. Because it's like every 80 years, right? 80 years ago, World War II. 80 years before that was the U.S. Civil War. 80 years before that was the Revolutionary War. 80 years before that, these are abouts, right? Was like the English Civil War, the War of the Roses, and so it's like you can keep going back and back and back, but it's like that honestly sounds a little bit too horoscopy for me, where it's like you're trying to connect bits of history that are it's like too circular, and so it's like I think that history doesn't repeat, it rhymes, right? Because people will say like history repeats itself, but it's like it's similar, it's very similar, and you can find connections from the past, but it's not always going to happen the same way. And so I don't know. It's one of those things. And I think that like with a history class where it's like having, I don't know, like bringing in different articles. I think there's a lot of fun things that could be as part of a history class. But I'm not a history teacher. I talk about history, right? I guess I teach history online, but it is a funny kind of thing. I mean, I teach history on here, right? And I want to do more of it and get better at it and do more videos and do long form videos more and all that. But yeah. Okay, I think at exactly 2 hours we're gonna end this thing because my voice is starting to go a little bit, and I got to do laundry. But we've got a couple minutes left. But thank you all so much for coming along with this journey. We're just getting started. It's been 3 years of me making videos on YouTube almost, and it's been in March it'll be 4 years of starting to make videos altogether. But we're just getting started. I'm going to be doing this for as long as I can. And I'm definitely excited to do it. But yeah, thank you all so much for subscribing, for watching this video with me. So like and subscribe, share with your friends. And maybe we'll do more live streams in the future. I think that would be a fun thing to do. But yeah, so yeah, I think doing some more of these in the future, I think would be good. I can't promise you when I'll do more, but I think doing some more, I think would be a good thing to do. I think doing more videos, about lots of different people, about different places, and all kinds of different things, I think would be really fun. I think doing trivia, I think would be a cool thing to do. Someone had mentioned Kahoots. I'd have to figure out how to do that. It's been a long time since I've done Kahoots, since I was in college. Was the last time I did anything like that. So I would have to figure out how that would work with this, but I do think that would be fun. But yeah, thank you all for coming along with this ride. And thank you for subscribing and watching and sticking with me for 2 hours. This has been a long live stream. But yeah, we're going to be doing more of these at some point, right? So thank you all once again. 100,000 is so many, honestly. That's crazy to think about. And hopefully we'll get to 1 million, 1 billion. Every single 9 billion people, everyone's going to want to watch this channel. Maybe not so much, but well, yeah, it is the ending, but you can go back and you can watch all of it if you wanted to, I guess. And a lot of people seem to want me to do more of these, so maybe we'll do more live streams. Thank you all so much. Thank you for watching and being a part of this and subscribing and liking and sharing my videos and commenting and stuff. And I just really appreciate all the support and love you guys have given me. So have a great night. Okay, I'm gonna end this now. If I didn't get to your comments, I'm sorry. Once I figure out how to end this. Okay. Okay, it is now ending. Thank you.